right, center, has the best intentions for our country. The best intentions for our country. And it's not about the personalities in this contest. It is not personal for us. But because we all acknowledge and we all know that Washington is broken, we must take a new path. There must be a new vision so that Congress works for the American people. Because the American people are watching what's happening here, and they've watched what's happened here, and they're sure in their hearts, and they can prove it, that this town works for this town. That's who this town is working for. Ladies and gentlemen, we are making history today. We are making history in this process. And we are showing the American people that this process works. Yeah, it's been about 100 years. It's been about 100 years since this has happened before. But we have said, we're not going to take any more of Washington being broken. We're going to do something for the American people, and we're going to fix it. And is it going to be painful? And is it going to be difficult? Yeah, it probably is. That's why it took 100 years. It probably is. But we're going to do it. And we can also make history today by making the first...
Will the House be in order?
By electing the first Black Republican Speaker of the House. Yes, thank you. Now, as my colleagues probably know, the first Black members of Congress to serve in this body were Republicans. As a matter of fact, you probably also know that Frederick Douglass, who went and worked with Abraham Lincoln to emancipate the people of color in this country, said he would never be anything but a Republican, I am here to nominate Byron Donalds because he has accomplished many things. He is a man of faith. He is a family man. He is a businessman, and he is a man of community service. He's come from the school of hard knocks, because not all outcomes in life are equal, but America is the place where we can each do great things regardless of our humble beginnings, each one of us. Now, Byron is a product of single family where it's not easy, but he has succeeded in America, and that's a testament to what we have created here and what we're trying to save. He's got a record of accomplishing things. He has a record of being on the right side. He is respected, he is trusted, he is capable, and he achieves results. Now, Byron has a big mind, and he's big in stature as well. He's very nice, but I will tell you this, in a negotiation with Chuck Schumer, I sure will want to be on the other side of Byron Donalds. He knows who he is, he knows what his foundation is, and he knows that Washington is broken, and what Chuck Schumer sends over here isn't going to work out for the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, Washington is broken. Byron Donalds will inspire us and restore our citizens' faith that this institution actually works for them. And it is my highest honor to nominate the gentleman from Florida, Byron Donalds, to be the next Speaker of the House, and I yield.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
Adams. Jeffries.
All right, we have now moved into the sixth vote for House Speaker. How long will this go? Still nobody knows. Jay O'Brien on the Hill for us. We are now moving into the sixth round, so let's talk about what we know, just the latest at this hour. We have been told possibly this could be the last vote of the day if it turns out to be the same as the 5 votes prior, and there may be more deal making through the night, and we'll be back at this tomorrow. What are you hearing?
Here we go again, Kira. Yes, this is vote number 6. Kevin McCarthy has not come close to the threshold he needs on any of these ballots to refresh all of those at home who are playing the home game. You need 218 votes to become the Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy has lost 20 Republican votes he can only afford, given the slim majority that Republicans have in this 118th Congress. He can only afford to lose 4 votes, and he's lost 20. He's got to do some work if he wants to be the Speaker of the House to get some of those 20, a great deal of those 20, to vote for him, to come back and vote for him if he wants to become the Speaker of the House. There's a lot to unpack here, but I just want to start with this notion of how long this process has been. So it began at noon yesterday. We had just about 6 hours of voting, a little bit under 6 hours of voting yesterday before there was a majority vote to adjourn and come back again today. We began again today at noon, and it's 3:30 now. So just about 9 hours, a little over 9 hours by my count, of voting for a Speaker of the House. It feels long, it feels drawn out. The last time the country did this was 100 years ago in 1923, so while it feels long and drawn out, in 1923 it actually took 3 days. The longest was 2 months. In the 1850s, 133 ballots, 2 months of voting for a Speaker of the House. So look, this has happened before. It's been drawn out before, but it hasn't looked like this on the House floor at the beginning of a new Congress in 100 years. So this Congress is very much in uncharted territory, but also, at the same time, they're experienced in this because they've now done this 6 times. What you're watching play out is that the clerk calls the last name of the member to vote, and then that member says the last name of who they want to be Speaker of the House. And over the last few ballots, we've seen that anti-McCarthy group, that group opposing Kevin McCarthy, coalesce around Byron Donalds. That's their candidate. It's their protest candidate because Donalds has shown no interest in being Speaker of the House. He's shown no interest in wanting this job, despite the fact that he voted for himself on the previous ballot. He voted for himself by saying he felt that it was cool that he was nominated. He wanted to cast a vote for himself for Speaker of the House. But Byron Donalds shows no interest in being the Speaker. I can tell you in my conversations with sources close to these conversations, they don't view Byron Donalds as a potential Speaker of the House. Instead, he is a vehicle, it appears right now, for those who are opposing Kevin McCarthy and have said that they do not want to vote for Kevin McCarthy. They don't feel that Kevin McCarthy has A, done enough to earn their vote, or B, they say there's nothing Kevin McCarthy could do to earn their vote. I take you back what feels like ages ago with a conversation between Bob Good, who's been staunchly opposed to Kevin McCarthy, and my colleague Will Staken, who was standing outside the House floor. And Staken asked, is there anything Kevin McCarthy can do right now? And the question was essentially, is there anything he can do to become Speaker? And Bob Good's response was he can withdraw. So that was his advice to Kevin McCarthy. Lauren Boebert, at the beginning of the last ballot, at the beginning of the 5th ballot, looked over to Kevin McCarthy when she nominated Byron Donalds and said that he didn't have the votes and that he should withdraw. So what the Never McCarthy group is telegraphing to Kevin McCarthy is that he should bow out and that he doesn't have the votes. But the sense we're getting from the McCarthy allies is that he shows no signs of backing down. Kevin McCarthy spoke with our colleague Rachel Scott earlier this morning. At the beginning of all of this, he said he was not going to back down. It was full steam ahead for him and his team. But we'll see if anything changes on that front, Kira.
And as you mentioned, Rachel Scott, not only has she been able to chase down Kevin McCarthy and also that interview with Byron Donalds within the last hour as he finally talked to reporters about being nominated, even voting for himself. She has been chasing other members of Congress to get more insight on possibly how long this can go and how this could end up. Rachel, what do you have?
Yeah, so we've been trying to get a sense from Republicans in that chamber about what is the clear pathway forward. So I just talked to Congressman Ken Buck of Colorado about what he believes should happen next. And I want you to take a listen to this because he's essentially saying that time is running out for Kevin McCarthy to make a deal. How long do you think this can drag out?
Well, it can drag out for a long time. And you know, when you only have a 5-vote majority, 4-vote majority, what you end up doing is
showing the American people
more than
that
likely
this
going
process
to
works.
convene
Yeah, it's been
after
about
this
100 years.
vote, possibly behind closed doors with Kevin McCarthy.
It's been about 100 years.
Is he sort of leaning the same way that they could have this conversation tonight and maybe
Since this has
have some
happened
answers
before.
by tomorrow?
But we have said
he, in
we're
fact,
not
is
going to take
hoping
any more
that
of
if
Washington
there's going to be a deal between McCarthy and some of these Republicans who are opposing him, that it is in fact going to happen tonight. So this way the House can move on with their business. They can come in tomorrow if need be, and they could vote for the Speaker of the House
in the same way that they could have this conversation.
There is still not a deal on the table, and that's when more Republicans need to start looking at other candidates, because the question becomes who can get the support. And I think that is still a big question mark. I think it's significant that names are actually being floated out loud at this point. They've been kind of whispering in the hallway about it, who exactly maybe could step in place of Kevin McCarthy. But now members are actually trying to float these names out loud to members of the press, including myself, as reporters are just sort of wondering how McCarthy gets there. But right now the ball is in McCarthy's court, and every single time that I have caught up with him, he has remained as defiant as ever. I mean, I just asked him repeatedly last night. Reporters were asking, you know, is there a scenario in which you would back away? Is there a scenario in which you would drop out of this Speaker's race? And he says, no, it's not going to happen. He still looks at these numbers and he says, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. But it's still not enough to break through the logjam. So again tonight, what we will see is immense pressure on these 20 Republicans who have opposed him to try to get them closer to him. Of course, he wants to start trying to peel away some of that support. But again, I talked to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert earlier, and one thing that was so striking to me is that she said Kevin McCarthy didn't even reach out to her. So maybe he sees some of them as a lost cause, but he can't completely dismiss that entire group there, because again, he could only afford to lose 4 members, Kira.
So all of those on the ground opposing him right now, Rachel, they seem to appear to just all have different thoughts and feelings, and no one's really on the same page, clearly adding to the complexity of all this.
I think that is so notable, exactly what you're saying, because that makes the challenge for Kevin McCarthy even greater, right? If these Republicans who are opposing him are not even on the same page about what they want, how can you deliver on a deal that coalesces this entire group to somehow rally behind him and support him? On one end, this has turned personal. You have people like Congressman Matt Gaetz who's saying that he's squatting in the Speaker's office after moving his stuff in without actually winning enough votes to become the next Speaker of the House. You have some of these Republicans saying that McCarthy is not trustworthy, that he's not conservative enough. They're calling for new leadership. That is personal. There's some deal that can be offered there that's going to change those really personal feelings of trust. And then on the other hand, you have some Republicans that are maybe lobbying for a better seat on a committee, right? They want a bill to come to the floor on the border. Those are actually things of substance, right? But you have this very, very stark divide here between some Republicans who have made it clear it's just not going to be McCarthy. Nothing that he presents is going to get them there. And others who want to see some concessions made here, but maybe what they want isn't what the next Republican over next to them wants. And so that's going to just be an immense challenge for McCarthy. It is just getting completely messy here, Kira. And this is part of the reason why there's no clear path forward. And we're just rolling with it as the Republicans are in this chamber.
messy. That big hot mess would be more appropriate, I think, as we've been going into our second day here. Rachel, thank you so much. Barbara Comstock, as we enter into what appears to be the loss of a sixth speaker vote here for Kevin McCarthy. I mean, does he have any more cards to play? I mean, how long can this really go? It seems like there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. Sounds like possibly McCarthy's going to come together tonight, try and work out a deal, and we may be finishing this up tonight, tomorrow. But really, how long can it go?
Well, I think what Kevin has indicated, he's prepared to go for as long as it takes. It's our his members. I think we're starting to see a little breakdown now, a little bit publicly, but not privately. And I think because they didn't have a meeting this morning, once they get back together, I think you're going to hear that probably more about geek out, and then you're going to see the name, her name is escalated. And so I think you'll see more of that. Don't think you're going to see a lot of concessions, because while Byron and Donald talking about, we just should have one person for, giving us the fare. The American people did not vote about that. They don't. They care about prices and the economy and all the things that Republicans said they were running on. So this idea that you continue to hold up former Congress over relinquishing a chair on a vote is nonsense. So I think they will lose their steam if Kevin does stop. So if that's the case, that's where this is going to go. So I don't think Kevin might throw support behind needs to be talking about a lot of concessions. It's really these people, all they want is a scalp, and they want they want to be noticed. What they love is press attention over the past few days. So they would love for this to go on and on. But I don't think the rank and file members want to see this go on and on. It's a disaster for Republicans, and as the speaker who listed the final Congresswoman from
So all of those on the ground opposing him right now, Rachel,
they do need to make a turn here.
Make a turn. We can only hope. Right now, we just keep going forward. Bringing into the fold now, former Democratic representative from New York, Kathleen Rice. Welcome aboard to our panel. Kathleen, it's great to see you joining us today. So your overall impressions from yesterday into today, since this is the first time we're talking together here on ABC News Live, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking second day in, and McCarthy appearing to lose his sixth speaker vote?
My first thought, thank you for having me. My first thought was, wow, I'm really happy that I'm not there. I love serving. I served with my good friend Barbara Comstock, but I'm glad I'm not there today to witness this. And I would say that I agree with a lot of what Barbara said. And at some point, this is going to come to an end. They're going to have to bless around someone. And I think with Barbara that whomever they choose is not going to be in the position that Kevin McCarthy is in, where he's having to give away the store, because they can say, look, you've got no other choice. What I'm more concerned about, and what I think the American people are going to be more concerned about, is what happens after there finally is a speaker, because there will be. What happens when we have to address the issue of the debt ceiling, the creditworthiness of the country? What's going to happen then? Many people are going to be in a very different position than they are right now. I think they're quickly gaining a very negative place in the American psyche right now. But when it comes to passing bills and keeping the creditworthiness of our country afloat, when they play these shenanigans, then I think they're going to be faced with a very, very different reaction.
So how do we compare, Kathleen, what's going on with McCarthy to last Speaker Nancy Pelosi? You helped lead the charge against Pelosi's 2018 run, and she was able to win and also keep her caucus together in many difficult years.
Well, I think it's important to note that my objection was never an ideological one. I wanted to see the torch passed to a new generation. And that was the basis of my objection to keeping the same leadership team in place. But keep in mind also that Speaker Pelosi at that time had a much, not a much bigger margin, but more seats. So she had a little more room to play with. And she's a masterful deal maker. Kevin McCarthy, a friend of mine, who I think deserves to be Speaker. I don't know at this point why he would be, but he deserves it. He put the Republicans back in the majority, but he's going to have a much smaller majority, as we are witnessing yesterday and today, to actually be able to get things done. And so I think it's it's important to note that Democrats wanted, there was a group of us who wanted to pass the torch to new generation of leadership. It was not an ideological issue. It wasn't a personal issue. This seems to be much more personal to Kevin McCarthy. I don't understand the basis for that, because he's definitely more conservative than Hakeem Jeffries would be, Speaker Jeffries would be. But they're also like, what is it that they're trying to? What ideological difference do they have with Kevin McCarthy? He gave them everything they wanted, and that still wasn't enough. So they really are becoming the never enough caucus of the Republican overall Republican caucus.
All right, Jay O'Brien, you actually have some new reporting now on McCarthy's strategy at this point. Do tell.
Yeah, this comes to us from our colleagues Will Staken and Kathleen Folders, who are standing just there off the House floor. And Will Staken reports Kevin McCarthy walked on the floor and said to him, let me just read it to you verbatim, we're going to take a break in a little, then go meet. He didn't elaborate as to where they're going to meet, what's next. He didn't give any other specifics. But it appears that the House might be headed towards adjourning again. Obviously, adjourning has to be done by a majority vote, as we saw yesterday. So if there's any opposition to adjourning, that could derail this. But in theory, it appears Kevin McCarthy is confident that he has the votes to take this break, to adjourn these proceedings today, and either kick the can into tomorrow, as we saw what happened yesterday, or kick the can later into the evening. They can adjourn to any designated date and time, but they have to pick a designated date and time under this situation in the House where there are no rules. Also, there's some other reporting that comes from both Will and Kathleen Folders, our colleagues here, again, standing right there off the House floor. In McCarthy, it appears, according to Will and Katherine's reporting, it is in talks with his allies to hold conversations tonight that will work to try to get some kind of deal that can earn him more support from those 20 anti-McCarthy votes that we've seen emerge over the course of the day. It's the same 20 who voted against McCarthy yesterday. Now there's one additional lawmaker who's voting present. Now there's some kind of a deal, it appears, or some kind of conversation to have McCarthy meet with lawmakers behind the scenes and his allies meet with lawmakers behind the scenes and work out a deal, particularly on what's called the motion to vacate the chair. That is a provision that would allow the removal of the Speaker of the House. It would allow the removal of Kevin McCarthy from his job if he becomes the Speaker of the House. And there's a debate as to what the threshold should be to trigger that vote to remove the Speaker. McCarthy caved and made it 5 lawmakers, so 5 lawmakers would have to get together and trigger that vote to remove the Speaker. Now there's conversations, and it appears McCarthy has agreed, according to this recording, to lower that threshold from 5 to 1. That would be a huge concession from him, and it's the concession that Byron Donald was talking about to Rachel Scott earlier on the steps of the House, or of the steps of the Capitol, saying we think there's going to be some motion on a movement on a motion to vacate the chair, lowering that threshold to 5 to 1. And according to Will and Katherine's excellent reporting, it appears that has happened now, and that he's agreeing to lower that threshold again from 5 to 1. Is that enough to move the needle? Is that enough to convince some of those 20 anti-McCarthy votes to come back to vote for Kevin McCarthy? That remains to be seen. I can tell you there are at least 5 hardcore Never McCarthy members of Congress who have been Never McCarthy votes from the beginning, have been Never McCarthy votes from just around right after the election. I spoke with a source close to them last night. In this source's opinion, there was nothing that could move the needle of those 5 lawmakers and get them to back Kevin McCarthy, but a lot lot's happened since last night, and any concession Kevin McCarthy makes could potentially convince lawmakers to switch to his side. We will see in those deliberations tonight exactly what he lays out, exactly what is agreed to, and if it is enough to get people to swap to Kevin McCarthy, and maybe later tonight or tomorrow, there is potentially some kind of a resolution to all of this, because we are going on 9 hours of voting for a Speaker of the House.
So, Kathleen, taking into account the new reporting that Jay just gave us, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? And what could this possible deal be if indeed we go with what Kevin McCarthy said just off the House floor there, that we're going to break it a little and then go meet?
Well, it makes sense that they're going to meet because they're clearly not getting the job done by hanging around the floor and trying to twist arms on the floor. So I think meeting is probably a good idea. The fact that it sounds like Kevin McCarthy is willing to reduce the number of people who can vacate the chair from 5 to 1 is incredibly disturbing, because really what that means is it would only take, if he becomes Speaker, if he agrees to this and they agree to vote for him, and at any point, once he becomes Speaker, it will only take one member of the caucus to bring a motion to vacate the chair. That would create a potential recall. So I understand why he's making these negotiations. I'm a little surprised that he gave that up. We put the rule in when we took over that it should be a majority of the caucus that has to take a motion to vacate the chair. It should not just be one individual member who can do that. But I understand deal making and negotiating. Maybe we will see the 20 or so, the 20 people willing to change their vote if they come to this agreement to lower the level that it takes to, as a motion, vacate the chair. But I just think that is going to create a potential nightmare for Kevin after he's sworn in, if he's sworn in as Speaker.
So, are Democrats still united here, Kathleen? And at what point does their stamina run out?
You're never going to see that. Democrats are more united now than they have ever been. We did a lot better in the midterms, a lot better we were going to do, and that's because we ran really good candidates, and we delivered for the American people. I personally am so proud that my fellow New Yorker, Hakeem Jeffries, is going to be minority leader. I wish he would be Speaker. But there is no question that Democrats are fully united behind that leadership team of Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar. We might have our differences ideologically, but we always come together to act for the American people. So I don't see there being any relenting, any weakening on the Democratic side. I think that every time we go through these votes, they get more emboldened to not be the ones to throw any of the Republicans a lifeline. They have to figure this out themselves. They wanted the majority. Now they're going to have to rule.
So, Barbara Comstock, if McCarthy was to win over at least one unexpected player, like Chip Roy, for instance, could he win this uphill battle?
Well, yeah, I'm certainly sorry to hear him, if he is thinking of giving away that motion to vacate or add to one, which I do think that would make his life miserable and bad for the institution. But I do think that, there are going to be people vindicated that wouldn't get their vote. I still think he has a problem. I think hard by knows that may not come back no matter what. And people like Bob Cook, people like Matt Gaetz, and there is some reporting now that seen from Politico is just going to Kevin Buck has told Kevin McCarthy that he needs to, kind of have some kind of deal to get these remaining votes, or he needs to step aside, or he might lose Ken Buck's vote, or others that might go with it. So I think that time is coming where he has to cut some deal that's going to produce enough votes to, there has to be movement shown here soon. or he's going to, lose some of his, the 201, 202 that he has had to date.
Kathleen, if you were on the floor today, and you already made it clear you're really glad you are not on the floor today, but if you were, what would you be doing right now? What would be the conversations you'd be having? What would you be attempting to do?
Well, I would, my one regret of not being on the floor is not being able to cast a vote for Hakeem Jeffries. But I spent my 8 years in Congress trying to reach across the aisle. I have relationships with a lot of Republicans. I would, be imploring them to try to, do the right thing here and get behind someone who, look, you can't beat someone with no one. But now we know, because we went through that as Democrats, you can't beat someone with no one. But we have gone through 3 or 4 separate, this is the 5th or 6th vote now, with 3 separate other people, and they didn't even come close to reaching Kevin McCarthy. I think he has earned the right to be elected speaker. The chaos, obviously, Democrats feel like it's good for them because the Republicans, they got the majority, albeit by a small number of seats. But now what they're showing the American people is we can't even agree on the most basic vote they have to take, which is who is going to the House. And this is something that I know that, the leadership team has been working on for a long time. So, I mean, I don't know if I would end up, I don't know. I don't have a big enough ego to think that I would be able to, nor would it be my job to persuade the never Kevins, because people in their own party can't do it. But I do hope that, we get past this quickly because we have to get to the work of the American people. Right now, there is no functioning House of Representatives. I stopped being, my final day as a member was yesterday, but my successor has yet to be sworn in. So the people in my district and in districts all across the country are not being represented yet. Committees are not being set up. We've got to get a move on this and set the rules and get to work as a body.
And Kathleen, just, in layman's terms, tell those that are listening and paying attention and wondering, okay, what does this mean for me on a daily basis every day? Because that was one thing that stood out when our Rachel Scott was able to grab Byron Donalds, the Republican there that's been nominated for Speaker, brand new, hasn't even been sworn in yet, hasn't even passed any legislation. He said, look, we're only in day 2. Everybody just needs to relax. We're going to come to a deal. People are still driving their car, going to work. I took my kids to school today, and I kind of sat back and thought, wow, not every constituent right now is going to feel that way when legislation, if we don't have a Congress, we don't have a Speaker, if legislation just comes to a standstill and nothing gets passed and Congress can't do anything for those who elected them. That's going to become pretty darn frustrating.
The longer this goes, it's going to get very, very, it's basically the equivalent, almost the equivalent of a government shutdown from a legislative perspective. But even more specifically to our constituents, there are no phones on in offices yet. I mean, no one has been sworn in. As I said, the person who sits with me has not become an actual sitting member of Congress yet. I mean, there are people in districts who are still dealing with COVID issues, who are dealing with educational issues, passport issues. I mean, that is when, people are really going to start to feel the pinch here. So we've got to get this, we've got to get, the Republicans have got to pick someone. They've got to settle on someone so we can get this legislative body back to work, set the rules for next Congress, get the committees set up, get people's members' offices in not only in D.C. but in their home districts set up so that they can address the needs of their constituents. I mean, this is going to become a problem the longer this goes on. And I hope that will bring some level of sanity and reasonableness to a group of people who have shown quite an immunity to those characteristics.
Keyword sanity to all the chaos that we are witnessing right now as we are entering in our second day. And it appears Kevin McCarthy is going to lose his 6th speaker vote. As we are, Jay O'Brien, where are we right now, letter-wise?
Yeah, we're a keeper of the alphabet as always for you, Kira. We are in the ends of the votes here on the floor. We've seen a block of 20 Never McCarthy or anti-McCarthy votes over the course of this entire proceeding. So we're expecting to see 20 by the end of this voting for someone else, some other Republican other than Kevin McCarthy. On this ballot and on every ballot today, those who are protesting a McCarthy speakership are voting for Byron Donalds. Yesterday, their protest candidate was Jim Jordan. Both Jordan and Byron Donalds have said they have no interest in becoming Speaker of the House. But nonetheless, once Kevin McCarthy passes 5 Republicans voting for somebody else, he becomes on track to lose that ballot. So he's absolutely on track to lose that ballot, because you see on your screen that column of 16 other, 17 other now. Those are Republicans who are voting for someone else, and each ballot has been, or each vote for someone else has been for Byron Donalds. So Kevin McCarthy, again, on track to lose this vote. We've seen him and his team working the vote on the House floor, attempting to find some kind of a deal that can get the required votes that he needs. He needs 218. We've heard from our reporting from Will Staken, our colleague who's standing right there outside the House floor, that McCarthy has said that they're going to take a break now. They're going to, in theory, adjourn if they have the votes to adjourn, and come back in a little bit, whether that's tomorrow or later tonight, with some kind of a plan. So what we're seeing going forward now is a move to adjourn, in theory, and also a push from McCarthy and his allies to try to strike some kind of a deal with those who are opposing Kevin McCarthy. But the question, as you and I have been discussing, that hangs over this entire process is what deal is out there that could convince some of those 20 anti-McCarthy votes to flip. As we've been saying over the course of the afternoon, there has not been a single vote that's flipped from a no back to Kevin McCarthy over this entire process. So to get any lawmakers that have gone from anti-McCarthy to pro-McCarthy would be a huge accomplishment for the McCarthy team.
Well, if the vote to adjourn goes like it did yesterday, as you may remember, Jay, before they could even say what's the answer, you heard the entire floor, everybody on the floor say yes, and it was quick and finished, and they decided when to come back. So at any moment, I guess we could find out. As soon as we know the outcome of this vote, probably we'll know not long after that if we adjourn or not. Yes, and it could happen quickly, as it did yesterday.
Exactly. It can take some time, because as you've seen in this process, what has to happen now is we've got to finish going through the alphabet with each member saying the last name of the person they want to be Speaker of the House. Then the clerk of the House has got to officially tabulate the votes, and only then can a member make a motion to adjourn these proceedings, if in fact there is a member who's going to make a motion to adjourn these proceedings. So it's going to take some time even for them to take a break, and in every one of those minutes, you can imagine the McCarthy allies are working on the anti-McCarthy votes to try to figure out if there's some kind of a deal to be had here. I can tell you from my conversations with those who under no circumstances want Kevin McCarthy to be the Speaker, that core group of so-called Never McCarthy votes, they believe that their task is to hold out and resist any pressure, and they feel that the pressure is going to keep building and building and building with every ballot that Kevin McCarthy loses, until some other kind of candidate that's more of a consensus candidate emerges, Kira.
Meanwhile, I'd be remiss if I don't mention, Jay, we're seeing a shot. Oh, there we go. George Santos. Now watch. He's going to vote, and he's going to quickly disappear. The one member of Congress right now under investigation for, well, a number of things, including making up his background, coming in to vote, because he says clearly he's going to vote for McCarthy, and he learned quickly that the cameras will follow him, so he has made very covert appearances to vote and then disappear once again. Anyway, thanks to our entire all-star players here on our political team. We are going to continue as we cover this battle for Speaker of the House on Capitol Hill after Republican Kevin McCarthy appears to come up short once again during the 6th round now of voting. We do have continuing coverage in just a moment, so keep it here. More news on the other side.
There's so much happening these days. hard to keep up.
Things change hour by hour, minute by minute.
The historic weather that's now unfolding.
The worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the Right Now. There's a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now book is the day ahead. An alert this morning for dog owners and the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning. America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different. Early mornings on ABC News Live.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms. From America's #1 news source comes the all-new ABC News app. Breaking news, incredible video, faster, smarter, and it can customize to you and your interests. If you love you know you're gonna love this. Experience what all the buzz is about. Experience the all-new ABC News app. Download it now. We're honored ABC's 2020 winner of 3 Emmy Awards for excellence. Thank you for making 2020 Friday night's most watched and most honored news magazine.
With so much at stake in our world right now, we wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
After an extraordinary news-making year, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
You never know what you're going to get on this show. That's all I'm going to tell you. Yes, Whoopi!
This mic on? Can you hear me out there?
Behind the scenes is always a better show.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's what people don't see during